Welcome to another episode of the You Can Do Hard Things, where we talk about doing hard things. We believe that everybody is equipped to be able to do hard things. And in this podcast, we hope that you find the tools, the inspiration, the motivation to go out there and do hard things. And today we have a extremely special guest, my most favorite person in the entire world. Joining us, we have my beautiful, gorgeous, stunning, brilliant, amazing wife, Josie Lynn Soriano. And the reason I brought her on today is because a lot of people hit us up and say, you guys should talk more about marriage. You guys should talk more about, your challenges, your struggles, your wins, your losses. And that's what today is about, right? Today we're going to talk about
the real.
We're going to get real. We're going to get raw.
Stuff.
Today kind of the topic is the challenges they did not tell you about marriage.
Or us. They didn't tell us.
Or us, right? They didn't tell us
either.
Yes. I think, I'm sure Josie will agree, I think most of us grew up with that fairy tale story when it comes to marriage, right? That, what's the one? Cinderella. It's kind of Cinderella story, or that happily ever after, or that men were like the knight in shiny armor, and I was going to pick you up your feet, and we're going to go happily ever after. Right? I think we all believe that marriage was the destination, and that once we got married, it was supposed to be this awesome thing, and it is. But that's where the real work actually begins.
Not
right?
in the way they portray it in the movies.
Yes, right. That no, you slay the dragon and you're done. It's like, no, slaying the dragon is one of the many battles they will really have in marriage. And that's what we want to talk about today. It's about the challenges. And Josie's a very wise individual where she has a lot of wisdom when it comes to the feminine side of the marriage, the motherly side of the marriage as well. And I'm very blessed that Josie has been able to challenge me in so many ways. And if anything, that's probably the first thing is find somebody who challenges you. If your partner doesn't challenge you, maybe start there, right? I mean, I know Josie has challenged me. She's called me out on some things, but I love her for that. And although it's not fun to hear it, you want someone who challenges you, right?
And I know we're not talking to everybody. We're talking to people in marriage, but I also think it's wise to throw out some nuggets for people who are single too, because I know they're going to be listening to this. Yep. And, there are things that we've learned in marriage that had we have had that knowledge outside before marriage, not that we would have chosen anybody else, but we just have a different perspective being married. And so like John just said, choose somebody who challenges you. And in the same way, choose somebody who takes ownership, because that's something John is really good at. It is, I could come at him with anything. I mean, that's really one of your like superhuman strengths is I could come at you with anything. And John always is like, thank you for challenging me. And I take ownership for it. I may not agree with it, may not see it from the way you see it, but he always takes ownership. So for all of you single people listening to this, if you are in a season of singleness, if you're wanting to date, if you're dating right now, please heed our advice. Yeah. Get connected with somebody who challenges you, who does not let you stay complacent, because that's where dreams go to die in marriage. And really look for a quality in someone who takes ownership. They don't have a victim mentality, and they listen to what you say. Yeah. And back to what you were saying, I know that we're on a roll here, but what you were saying about fairy tales is, I don't know, I can't speak for the man side of this, but I do know for the female side, when we got married, I definitely thought that marriage was going to be a certain type of way. Mm-hmm. And I do want to say that a lot of it does have to do with the way things are portrayed in movies, the way, quote unquote, how they're supposed to be. And it's just not the way it is. So one of the best things that I've done for myself and for John in our marriage is drop expectations.
Wow.
So what is it we say? Have hope, right? Hope that they're going to do these things, but don't expect it.
Don't be emotionally attached to it.
And that's a better way to say it. Yes, have expectations, right? Like, yes, have expectations, but if your partner doesn't hit those expectations, like you just said, don't be emotionally charged by it.
Exactly.
Don't be attached to it.
We both are flawed individuals. And a lot of the times what happens when you get married is, depending on how long you were dating. I mean, me and Josie's story is that we dated for 6 months. We're engaged 6 months later, and then married 9 months after that, right? So we only dated for about a year and a half before we were married. And the reality is that for the majority of that year and a half, Josie only saw my highlights. You know, I only brought up the very best version of me. And the reality is that when you get married, you see the full person, right? You see the ugly as well, the bad, the flaws, the weaknesses. And I think it's important, like Josie said, to have those communication, to establish a communication on how you deal with really the disappointments, because we're flawed people. And there's going to be days where she fills me up and makes me feel top of the world. And there's going to be days where she lets me down, and vice versa, right? There's days where I'm going to let her down, right? Where I'm going to not show up as the best version of myself. And in those moments, it's important that you have a plan of action on how to deal with it. And one of the things not to do is do not be emotionally attached to the result. Have an expectation of what the result should be. But if it doesn't happen, don't have an emotional response to it, right? Take more of a non-emotional response and kind of assess, okay, what went wrong? Back to ownership. What could I have done better, right? Maybe what could my partner have done better? And then from there, just grow. Because the reason we're doing also this episode is the reality is Josie and I understand that we are against some pretty big odds. You know, the statistics say that in America, about 50% of marriages end in divorce. Right? Those are some huge odds. That means that every time someone gets married, you're literally flipping a coin. And if it's on heads, you get divorced eventually. If it's tails, you stay married, right? And in our generation, more people are more likely to walk away when things get hard, or maybe in our parents' generation, right, when things got hard, they were willing to work it out. Right. And, this whole podcast is about doing hard things, and having a great marriage is hard. And Josie and I, by no means have we made it, right? Because we will always be in this journey. But as of now, we're about 2.5 years married, 4.5 years together. And I can say confidently that our marriage is better today than when we first got married. Yeah. And what happens is most people, it's the way around, right? When they first get married, that's when it's awesome. The sex is good. It's exciting. But then eventually they fall into that roommate routine.
Oh, yeah. And we do not subscribe to the whole wait till 11 years of marriage. That's when it starts to go downhill. Wait till the honeymoon phase is over. Like, that is a choice.
That is a choice.
We don't subscribe to that choice. Yes. Every year, every day, every week, every month, yeah, that's what we're going to do, is continue to get better and better and better. And it takes work. And like John said, we don't pretend to know everything. And we have only been married for 2 years. We're still very young. But we have been dealt a pretty interesting hand. Mm-hmm. We're a blended family. As you'll hear about and what we're going to get into here in a minute, we have already been through challenges in our marriage that I really feel like qualify us to be able to speak into, marriages, especially young marriages. So
let's get into the first one, Joe. This one's going to be like just off the wall, just a pretty raw one that I feel most people aren't talking about. And that is the topic on pornography.
Crickets.
Crickets. Pornography robs marriages of so much. It robbed me of so much. It robbed Josie of so much. And the reality is that when we first got married, I was still looking at porn, right? The first few months that we were married, it was still a struggle and a challenge that I had, right? And it was something that we had to overcome. It was something that we had to work through. I remember the first time I opened up to Josie about my porn, and it's something that I think we will always be working through. I remember it was very difficult for me to get to a point where I'm comfortable talking about it, and to get to a point where I'm like, cool, I feel like I can win this battle. And again, it's going to be an everyday journey. So I think what'll be interesting is to first talk about what porn does to a man, and then what porn does to a woman, right? So I know for me, it's like porn made it seem where sex was just physical, right? It created this sense of selfishness in a relationship where it was all about me, right? Where it was only about me and not about Josie. And it was wired in me so deep because I was looking at porn, or I started looking at porn when I was 12 years old, right? At 12 years old was my first exposure to pornography. And for, I don't know, a good 12, 14 years, I believed that it was okay, that there was nothing wrong, that that's what guys just did, right?
And I would venture to say, John, that that's what most people think. And when they hear this episode, that's still what they're going to think. Maybe they'll be changed after they hear it.
Yeah, and most exactly. There's women that's like, oh, I don't care if a man looks at porn, but the reality is that it does change the wiring in a man's brain. It does. It totally does. And that we can go into so many components of it, but some off the bat is number one, it makes you selfish in nature. It does make you selfish sexually, right? To where sexual satisfaction is only about me, and that's going to show up in the bedroom. To where now it's because you've been conditioned to seek self-pleasure for so long that you would do that in the bedroom. It also changes how you view women, right? You don't view women necessarily as this beautiful creature that is meant to be protected and provided for. You view women more in a sexual way. And there's nothing wrong with looking at a woman and thinking she's beautiful, but right when you start lusting, when you start looking at the features and going down that route, that's where it can get messy. And I do believe that when adultery happens, when cheating happens, it's probably because the man in some component was looking at pornography and wasn't dialed in with his wife. Because it also makes it to where I'm more attracted to a fantasy of being with another woman than a fantasy of being with my own wife, right? So I know for a man, right, those are just some of the components that it changes. I mean, what would you say for like, what does it do for on the woman's side?
So because there are also women that look at porn. So I'm speaking from a perspective of a woman who does not look at porn. And for me, what it does is, and I think I've had this revelation more now that I've gotten older, more wise. I look at it like it exploits women. Because when I think of porn, I think about somebody's daughter. I think about, does the woman even want to be there? Most women who are in pornography are addicted to drugs because you have to be addicted to drugs. You have to take some type of numbing substance to be able to do that kind of work most of the time. And that's not a blanket statement. Like you said, this is not a blanket statement, but most porn is male-centric. What does that mean? The male is the center of attention. It's all about the male. It's all about the male climax. And it's not about the woman. And like you said, if you have somebody like you who've been watching porn since they're 12 years old, conditioned, it's all about the man. What's going to happen when he gets in a marriage and it's all about him? Well, that's not going to work long term. And especially if you're with somebody like me who's going to speak up and be like, this doesn't work for me. Right. So I think it, like you said, yeah, it definitely, it makes it hard on the woman when it does instill selfishness, I think, in the man. And that's not how marriage was designed to work. It's very much about both the man and the woman. And I think it also puts an unrealistic expectation on women on how they need to perform in the bedroom. Because if a man is watching pornography and let's say he's watching porn, man and woman, these are actors and actresses and they're acting. Right. And so I feel like it can cause an unrealistic expectation for what men expect out of women in the bedroom. Well, I saw her do that in porn. Why aren't you doing that now? So, I think it can be, it's damaging for both the man and the woman. Even if the woman doesn't watch it, it's damaging. So, and
then the woman thinks that she has to be a certain way, do certain things, and it makes sex more of which kind of is the next topic, right? That the challenge is sex. I think what porn does is it creates this false identity, as you can say, that sex is only physical, right? That's only about the physical. It's only about the orgasm, right? It's only about pleasure. And something that I learned from you is that sex is actually much more than that, or it can be more than that, right? Sex is actually more of a spiritual act than it is a physical one, right? That's why the Bible says that when you have sex, the two become one, right? Because, we believe that our true essence is spirit, right? That we are spiritual beings experiencing life in a physical body, and that when you engage in something sexual, our spirits are intertwined, right? That's why the Bible talks about soul ties and all that. And, when you have sex, you create soul ties with the people, and that's a whole nother topic in itself. But I learned, Josie taught me that, sex can also be a spiritual thing. And I feel that our sex life today is a whole lot better than, in our first year of marriage, right? Because I've learned, right, that what sex really means in a marriage. And I've had to undo the wiring of it's only about me. It's only about me. It's only about me getting turned on. It's only about me. And what happens, I think, is a lot of the times the men get, sexually satisfied, but then the women are kind of like, I'm not really getting what I want, right? And that's not just in the physical sense, but like maybe a woman doesn't feel a sense of connection with her partner or with her husband when they're having sex, right? So that's another thing too. Like, let's talk about sex. That's a topic that it's a little taboo. People don't want to talk about it. But I think understanding what sex really is, right? And like I said, like I would define it as it's more of a spiritual act than a physical one.
Spiritual.
Yeah. It's more like the mind and the spirit. It's like it's the body, the mind, and the spirit becoming one, connecting with one another, And like when that happens, I mean, if you haven't experienced this, I'm telling you, like I know we're getting real and raw here, but the climax that you experience is so much better. It is so much better when you feel the sense of connection, real connection.
And that's how it's supposed to be.
Right? To where like, wow, I care for this person. I love this person. Like, yes, I want to see them experience this euphoria, right? And it's an exchange of I'm serving you, you're serving me. And, we're just like passionate about each other. And again, when you get there, and it took me a while to get there. Josie was kind of already good at it. Because she's just naturally she just serves naturally, it just isn't her DNA. I came into the relationship a little kind of selfish, right?
And I just want to pause right there because I know, like, for the women listening to this, it can be a really uncomfortable conversation to have with your partner of like, hey, listen, what you're doing in the bedroom doesn't work for me. But the only person who's going to be able to write your story in the bedroom is you and your husband. So you have to speak up. Sex conversations can get really awkward.
Very.
They can get, like, we have had some awkward conversations more than once.
Yeah.
We've had the same conversation multiple times about the same topic. And that's another thing is if you're not getting what you want, you have to ask for it, and you have to ask for it persistently, because this is who you're going to be with hopefully for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And life's too short to have bad sex. So
it's too short, yeah. Well, and when you have bad sex, right? I mean, all these things, if they're not addressed, right? All these things we're talking about, if they're not addressed, eventually potentially leads to cheating, which can lead to divorce, right? Or it doesn't have to lead to cheating. It can just lead to divorce, right? Because they're like those people that say, oh, we fell out of love, we just blah, blah. No, it's you stop doing the things, right? Or you stop learning how to be a better partner. I remember I read this great book called She Comes First, it was CUMS, right? It's a great book, She Comes First. And, I really learned in there how one of the key things of the book for a man, it says that foreplay is not foreplay. Foreplay is core play, which it was a radical shift for me, just understanding that foreplay is not just this thing you do in the beginning. It's everything, right? And when we think of foreplay, we think of, I won't even say it, we know what we think of, but foreplay can also be like, hey, I send you a text message like earlier in the day to plant that seed, right? Or like before I leave, we just passionately make out to, again, plant the seed. What I've learned as a man is that sex is more of a mind thing for Josie, and where sex can be more of a physical thing for me.
Totally. And that's
right?
what a lot of men do not understand, which is why we're talking about this, because we didn't understand this, or you didn't understand this. And I didn't understand this, but a lot of guys don't understand that when they just want to approach their wife all willy-nilly right there on the spot, and she doesn't want to give in to him, why that is. And it's because, like you said, women want to be romanced all day long throughout the day, yesterday, and build it up.
Right.
Don't just come in hot. That's not how women work. Women are like an oven. We need to take our time. We need you to take your time. And that's a really good point.
And what's interesting is that I desire the latter, right? Like I remember there's times where Josie just pounces on me. I know we're getting raw, but she just does, and I think I can speak for most men. Men like that spontaneousness. Like men, that's why men, they can do it like on the spot, right? Where women, yes, they need to be romance, right? So it's like understanding each other, right? Like Josie knows that, cool, I like it actually when it's just on the spot. I like it when we're just watching a movie and then out of nowhere, it just flips, turns on, and then she's like making out with me. And I'm like, yes, I love this, right? Now, if I did that to Josie, I'm not saying she wouldn't like it, right?
I would love it, but it's that's just not how women are wired.
Yes, it's not like women, for them, it's a slower process, right?
And that's what we want to.
Women are more like an oven. Men are more like a microwave.
Exactly. And that's our goal, is to, for you to listen to this podcast and walk away with one nugget, understanding yourself or understanding your partner better. Because these are the things that we have come across that have just made a huge impact in our marriage.
Yeah, because all of us strive. We want to be better in a year financially than when we are today, right? We want to be better maybe physically in a year than we are today, right? We talk about, like, these are things that the world talks about, but no one's talking about, is your sex life better today than it was a year ago? And it's actually most people, they're wired into things the other way around. Like men believe like, oh, I'm not going to get married because why would I get attached to one girl? And what I've realized is that I'm actually having way better sex today as a married man than when I was single, right? I am. And it's because I understood how it works. Because, also, Josie and I were big in our faith, right? We understand that sex was a creation by God, and God wanted us to experience this euphoria, right? Which I believe is actually the closest thing we get to heaven currently on this earth, right? That feeling of sex. And so because we believe that it's created by God, he's the best one to go to figure out how to best utilize it, because it's a tool that he made, right? And then, there's a verse biblically that says, husbands, your body belongs, I'm butchering here, but some of the lines of like, husbands, your body belongs to your wife, and then wives, your body belongs to your man. In other words, what it's saying is that we have to understand that it's my responsibility to understand how she feels pleasure, and then it's her responsibility to understand how I feel. And if we both have this synergistic energy that we get that, then it's awesome.
And I want to dip back into the porn conversation. I know we're talking about sex. Like John just said, your husband's body is yours and your body is your husband's. And when a man or a woman, however, watches porn, that's impacting your spouse. And you don't actually get to watch porn because that's not just your body. Same, you know what I mean? Like if you drink, it's going to impact your spouse. Mm-hmm. If you have sex, or if you watch porn, it's going to impact your spouse. If you work out or don't work out, it's going to impact your spouse. And so, I hear people, I've had conversations with people who say, well, I don't care if my husband watches porn. I'm not insecure. And it's nothing to do with being insecure. It's practicing the discipline, because watching pornography is no different. Watching pornography and being addicted to porn is no different than being addicted to alcohol. There is going to be some repercussions somewhere. And I just want to say this because I feel like it needs to be said, but women who don't want their men to watch porn are not insecure. We're actually so secure that we know who we are.
Talk about it.
We know who we are, and we know what we will and we will not stand for. And if that's what you want to do in your marriage, that's fine. But for me, I feel like we said, our marriage has gotten done a 180 since not having porn in our marriage.
Right.
And,
And again, to kind of wrap even that up, just know it's okay if you struggle with it, right? It's very hard to put it out there in the open. Like I said, when Josie and I went through that in our dating season, it was very hard. I remember the first time it was on the phone. I opened up, and it was a very ugly fight. And I remember a few times, a couple months after that, you just had an intuition and a feeling, and I came clean, and we had to walk through that, right? And it will always, it's definitely easier now, and like for me, right? Like my journey has been that I've been free for porn for a very long time, for a few years now. And I'm very happy, though, that I was open with Josie about it, and that we've gone to a place that now we can even talk about it, right? Like even for us, just talking on this subject is a win for us, because there was once upon a time where talking about it made both of us feel uncomfortable. It triggered certain parts in her, and it made me feel awkward because, again, it's not something guys talk about, which kind of leads us to like the next point, which is, one of the challenges is communication. We believe that in order to have a great marriage, you have to set healthy boundaries, and you do that by communicating your needs to your partners.
Like the queen of boundaries.
So we have a philosophy in our relationship that goes that, hey, it is our responsibility to communicate our needs, and it is our responsibility to be understood. So if I need something from Josie, it is my responsibility to make sure that she understands whatever it is I need to understand, right? If for some reason she doesn't understand it, then I need to re-clarify.
It's always your responsibility to make sure your communication lands with the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's good because you need to have communication. One of the challenges I had was I was afraid to speak my mind when we first got married. When we first got married, I had this mindset that I was like walking on eggshells because I'm like, well, I don't want to say what I really feel because what if I piss Josie off? What if I upset her? What if, it creates this chain? And then I had to come to a place where I'm like, you know what? I have to accept whatever may come if for me to communicate what I need. So if I'm feeling some type of way, if Josie did something that maybe upset me or whatever, and I just feel like I need to get it out, because what happens when you communicate in any relationship, you just feel better, right? You don't want to harbor resentment in you. You don't want to harbor some negative thought. You just want to get out in the open.
And how cool is it to have a marriage that, okay, so let's say, John, you have you and your boys, right? What makes your relationship with your boys, the bromance, so cool? Well, you can tell each other anything. Mm-hmm. So that is really the goal. And it takes time and practice to have that in marriage because it is a different dynamic. Yeah. But like you said, being able to create that relationship where you can say whatever you want to say unapologetically, which I personally think I'm really good at. And
you are. And I've discovered that a lot of women are, like, for them it comes more natural. Where I want to help men is in reclaiming their voice and their authority in their relationship, because there's actually, I believe this for a long time. You and I have never talked about this, and I would love to gather your thoughts on it. But there's a saying that goes, happy wife, happy life. And for a long time, I believed that. And just recently, I heard someone talk about how that is one of the biggest lies in marriage. Because what that is saying is that it is all about the wife. Right. And what that does, that it undermines the man. And not that it's, of course, yes, it's about Josie, but it's about both of us, right? It's not only about her, it's also about me. Because if I only put her first in everything and I suppress myself, what that does is just, it creates resentment. And I think most men, they're afraid sometimes to speak up. They're like, well, happy wife, happy life. Okay, well, is that really happy? Is that really a happy life? If only your wife is happy and you're not happy, is that really a happy life?
Well, that's where the stigma comes in of marriage sucks.
Yeah.
Because men feel like they're trapped.
Men feel trapped. Men feel like, oh, my days of freedom are over. And I feel more free today than wherever, Like I remember when I recently I got into poker, and I thoroughly enjoy the game. I think it's a fun game. And I remember when I first started to play, I felt like I had to ask permission to play, right? Because, happy wife, happy life. But I realized that I'm like, no, if I feel like that this upsets Josie and I'm not doing it, I'm suppressing something that I enjoy to do, right? And I think most men, sometimes they have some hobby they want to do, whether it's surf or they want to go have a night out with the boys, and they're afraid to not speak up, but just like express, communicate, hey, this is a need that I have. And if for some reason you're not okay with it, okay, let's talk through it.
Yeah, it's not asking for permission. And let's just pause right there. Going back to happy wife, happy life, you hit the nail on the head when you said that's the man's way of saying, as long as she's happy, like I'll do whatever I need to do. I'll cower down. I'll put my emotions on the back burner. I'll put what I want on the back burner as long as she's happy, because I do not have the ass about me to be able to handle her emotions.
Yes.
So if you find yourself saying that as a man, you're really going to want to lean in, because you want to check your masculinity and how you're showing up in your marriage. Because if you say happy wife, happy life, that means your wife comes first. That means she is the end all be all, and it's all about what makes her happy. You are giving her the role of the man, which means she's going to act more masculine, which is bitchy, naggy. She's not going to respect you because she's having to step into a role that God does not design her to step into, which is the role of the man. So you need to reclaim your masculinity. It's not happy wife, happy life. It's happy us.
Yes.
And once you learn, and I'm not saying this because I'm a man, I'm saying it because I've watched us. Once you're able to step into your masculine, you will watch your woman relax into her feminine, be more, what is it? How would you describe the feminine energy? It's just seductive. It's calm. It's playful. It's
very playful.
When she's in that
flirty. It's
almost like when she's like
wisdom.
Almost when she's had like half a glass of wine and she's just like ha ha ha. Like that's what I think of when I think of feminine energy. Yeah. And so many times women cannot relax into their feminine because their man is not stepping up into his masculine. And so this is a conversation that me and John like to talk a lot about, because we live in a freaking world where it's women, and they need to be the man and they need to provide and they need to, and that it's hard for a woman to even know what feminine is when she's in a masculine role.
Right.
And it's hard for men to know what masculine is when he's being
and it's
treated the way he's being treated in today's world.
And I think it's important for us to know what masculine energy is and what feminine energy is. And both of us have both of that, right? I have both masculine and feminine energy, right? Because that's an energy. It's not a gender, right? Same with Josie. And there are moments where Josie needs to step into her masculine, right? Like, for example, if I'm traveling for work and she's raising our 2 sons, right? There might be a moment where she needs to step up into the masculine role to control our 2 children, right? And then, for example, when I come home, I need to be aware that, okay, maybe Josie's in her masculine, so I can't just expect her to like, I come home and she's all like feminine because she's been in masculine energy for maybe 2-3 days. Yeah, I've been in
take control, make shit happen mode all day.
Yeah. So then I need to have the understanding of, okay, cool, she's in masculine mode. I need to then come in and maybe take some of that weight off her little by little, right? So that and give her like a day or so to reset, to kind of come back to that feminine energy, because Josie, and I would say most women, if not all women, they want to be in their feminine energy, right? And men, same with men, right? Men want to be in their masculine energy, right? I think men, we are wired to be hunters. We're wired to be providers, right? We're wired to, that's why, genetically, we are biologically stronger than women, right? Because that's what we were wired. That's how our creator made us, right? To be protector of the woman. That's not to say that the woman can protect herself. Of course she can. If it came down to it, Josie would 1,000% be able to protect herself, right? But I still have to also understand that it is my role to create that overall in our relationship. So there's this great book called The Masculine in Relationship. I would recommend all men to read that book. It just talks about understanding masculine and feminine energy and knowing what women crave. Like, for example, would you say that you crave security from me?
Yes.
Would you say you crave the ability for me to be able to handle your emotions?
Yes.
Right? Like that's what masculine energy is, right? It's a masculine energy creates security, and that's of course physical security, that's financial security, that's emotional security. Also a masculine energy can handle her emotions, right? So meaning when she's stressed out, I need to be able to handle that.
And let's give the guys a practical statement that you have used when I get upset or I have big emotions. And that is, and guys, you can use this. Watch your woman shift when you get home. You've said, I can handle your emotions. Mm. Like, and most of the time, that's just what a woman, it's kind of confusing at first because you're like, what? But no, I can handle your emotions. Like whatever you're about to throw at me, crazy woman, I can handle you.
Yeah.
Not let me cower down and let me get reactive, because that is actually what you used to do, which everybody does that. Most people are reactive. Most people are in a reactive state. They're not in a proactive state. That is one thing John used to do when we got married, like any man probably does when he first gets married, is I would have a big emotion, and John, instead of just receiving it, listening to it, I'm not saying get beat up by it, I'm not saying be disrespected, but instead of just receiving it and listening it and taking the blow, for lack of a better term, he would just react. And then that's when argument starts, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and when both of us are seeing red, nothing's going to come out of it, right? And the masculine energy is an individual who can handle, right, if she's emotional or she's stressed out for whatever reason, right? It's something that upset her, right? To be able to kind of be more neutral, right? Just to hey, cool, I'm going to hear you out. I'm going to create a space where you can vent. I'm going to create a space where you can say what you want to say, and I'm not going to take it personal, even though it's hard not
that's
to.
a big one. Not taking things personal.
And that's hard.
My gosh.
It's very hard to not take it personal because, we're emotional creatures. And, you said something about like, yes, I would get reactive. And that's because all humans were wired for self-preservation, right? When we see a threat, we automatically are like, cool, I got to defend myself, right? Survival of the fittest, And so our minds interpret an argument the same way, right? We see it as a threat. We see it as, hey, someone's coming at me. Sure, they're not coming at me with like a knife or teeth or whatever, but they're coming at me. So naturally you need to condition your mind to be like, no, I'm not going to get reactive. I'm going to create a space where I can listen, where I can get really good at asking the right questions and to understand why she's feeling the way she's feeling. And I've realized that when I do that, usually I don't gotta do anything else. The problem kind of works itself out. And that's another myth too that we men believe, is that we have to fix everything.
Oh yeah.
And our women is not looking for us all the time to fix everything. I remember when we would fight, in my mind, I'll be like, okay, it is my responsibility to fix this. I have to fix it. And a lot of the times, what you're wanting from me is just to listen.
I mean, if there's anything that I've learned from, coaching, is be more available to listen than you are to speak. And you're right. Most of the time, if somebody is upset, they just want to be heard. They just want, when we say create space, if you can literally imagine opening up a space where somebody's words can just flow and land, that is most of the time what your partner is wanting. And something really good that we do is, if John, has something he needs to say, I'll say, are you looking for feedback, or are you just wanting me to listen to you?
Wow.
Because a lot of times we respond when the other person's not looking for a response. They're not looking for your advice or your wisdom. They're just looking for hey, I just need to get this off my chest. I actually don't want you to say anything. I don't need to hear you. I just need a safe space where I can say what I need to say. Yeah,
and in case you guys missed it, that's a great practical thing to do in a relationship, is like before you give feedback, kind of in a way ask for permission. Be like, hey, cool, you're telling me this. Are you looking for me to give you feedback or just listen? Yeah. And I know for men, a lot of times, Josie's just looking for me to listen, but listen intently, right? And listen with genuine ears. I had a friend call me the other day, and Josie was with me, and his opening statement was, hey, are you open for feedback right now? And I love that. I thought that was cool. Instead of him right away giving me feedback about whatever, and because if he doesn't do that, what happens is we can interpret it as they're coming at me. And although he's not, right? It's just we that's how we interpret it. But if he says, hey, are you open for feedback? And I say yes, I now no longer have the right to get upset because I just gave him permission to give me feedback. Same thing in a relationship, right? If I see something in Josie, right, instead of just coming at her right away, I can kind of start with like, hey, babe, are you open to some feedback right now?
And if I say no,
then I have to respect that and be patient and maybe wait for another opportunity.
Right, because how much sense does it make if John throws his socks in the living room floor every day? LOL.
All men do that.
They really do. Even our boys do it. Want to come at him and say something, which, by the way, does not bother me at all. It really doesn't. But let's say John's had a really hard day at work. John's just been on 10 phone calls, and John's got a lot going on, and he's just not in a space where he wants to talk about him throwing his socks on the floor. But I don't ask him. That could start an argument. That could, or make you feel some type of way. So, like we said, a good practical way is, hey, John, are you open to receiving feedback about something that's kind of frustrating me? Right. Yeah, I am. I'm open. Let's hear it. Or, no, actually, I'm not right now. Can we talk about it in a little bit? Right. This is a really good way to communicate. Yeah. And
because if I'm already stressed out of my mind, if I'm already seeing red, right? I've already have cortisol in my blood, and then she gives me starts venting to me about something's going on, I'm going to naturally interpret that as she's coming off with the B word, right? She's being the C word, and she's not.
And when he says C word, he means crazy.
Yeah. And she's not, right? I mean, she's not. It's just that, we just have to understand the psychology of the brain, that it is very difficult to receive feedback about you when you're already in a stress environment. So when she says that, it's an opportunity for me to say, can you give me 5 minutes? Give me 5 minutes to decompress. Hey, I just got off this. Can you give me 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? Going back to communication, communicate your needs and respect also those needs. When me and Josie argue, I'm the individual that I want to resolve it right then and then, or I want to talk about it. Josie's the kind of person that she needs time, right? And usually in a relationship, you'll find that you're one or the other.
Yep.
And I had to come to a place where it was okay to take a 30-minute break, a 1-hour break, sometimes a whole day break from each other, and to where if we're fighting, I have to be okay with letting her process. And to this day, I don't like it. Right. To this day, I still want to get my way. But then there's times where we're fighting and Josie's like, John, I can't talk to you right now. And I have to be okay with saying, okay, even though I don't want to.
And for those of you couples who have crazy arguments, we do.
Our argument, trust me, our arguments get very, 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 they get wild. Right?
We're a passionate couple.
One time, let's just say a frying pan was thrown. Okay? And it wasn't me.
It wasn't you. For those of you couples who, you find yourself getting in really nasty arguments, this was revolutionary to our marriage, is being able to figure out the way you process. I am a slow processor. I need to chew on it. I need to think about it. I need to spit it out and put it back in my mouth and go and mull it over. John, quick processor. He wants to get to it right now. He doesn't want to drag this out all day. He wants to be done in an hour and then go on a date night later. For me, I can't even think about going on a date with him. I'm so, et cetera. So knowing how you process is good. And learning how to respect your spouses the way they process is good. This took me and John a while because John would want to, like he said, he wants to resolve it right now. I'm in a very activated state. I am pissed off. I do not want to talk about it. When you're in an activated state, you're not going to get anything resolved. So if you do find yourself getting in nasty arguments, one of you guys are going to have to respect the other. And two people can't be seeing red at the same time.
Yeah. And I would challenge the men to say for you to step up and be that person, right? That if your wife's not doing it, like you need to step up. Well, no, not if, like you need to be the one. I do believe it is on the men to really lead from the front in the marriage and do what is hard to do. Remember, this whole thing's about you can do hard things. It is hard to be the one that takes the cool, calm, and collective approach when you feel like you're being attacked, right? It's hard to, bite your tongue a little bit in that moment and be like, you know what, my wife's seeing red right now, and have the awareness of, okay, what could possibly be going on in her world that's causing her to act this way, and just kind of have sympathy for her. So a question I want to ask you, babe, is, what kind of advice would you give to the females out there that are, let's say, cool, in a marriage where they feel that it's not as thriving as it could be, where they feel like they're digressing, where they feel like maybe their marriage is worse today than a year ago, 3 years ago? What advice would you give to that woman?
So, PSA, this is tough love. Take ownership always for where your marriage is and the part that you play in your marriage. It is so easy to say it's his fault or it's her fault. But one thing that I've come to learn is that if my marriage is in shambles, I cannot do anything to change you. I can only change me.
Wow.
So while we might feel righteous and like we're perfect in our marriage, well, he did that. He cheated. He's the one that cheated. I don't need to fix anything. No, yes, you do. So I would say take radical ownership for where you are. Pick up a book.
That's the word there, radical ownership.
Radical ownership. Yeah. And radical ownership is I really don't feel like I'm the problem, but you're owning it anyway. Always own it.
Exactly.
So pick up a book, pick up a podcast, hire a coach. Underline that one. Hire a coach. That's one of the best things you could do for yourself and your marriage. And
shameless plug, Issa Rooney. Shout out Issa Rooney.
Yeah,
great coach.
My coach is amazing. Hire a coach and get better yourself, because I do believe that you attract what you are. So get better and you will have better. And you might be saying, well, Josie, you don't understand my husband this. It doesn't matter. You're never going to change them. So you need to do what you can to get better. And in the Bible, because like John said multiple times throughout this podcast, we are faith-based, and that's how we base our marriage. That's our foundational belief. The Bible says for women to win their husbands over with their reverent behavior. So if your husband is not going to step in line and do the things that you want him to do, win him over with your behavior. Wow. Be so impressive to him that he looks at you and he wants to change. He wants to shift.
Yeah.
And the only person, like I said, that you can change is you. So women, change you, because you'll go nuts trying to change him.
That's good. And like you said, radical ownership. And, you know, I do believe, like you say, you can't change people. The most you can do is influence them, yep. right? And the best way to influence someone is with your own behaviors, your own action, with how you show up in life. You know, I know you influence me because one thing that you're phenomenal at is you're a great reader. I always see you reading books on marriage, reading books on being a great parent, and that inspires me. And that also, in a way, motivates me to be like, I don't want to be the one in the relationship who is like stagnant, right? So it also motivates me to, like, for example, today I committed to a pretty crazy fitness goal, and I haven't told you this, but a lot of that was inspired by my wife, because I literally saw my wife. So Josie just gave birth to our son 7 weeks ago. And I saw her throughout the whole 9 months of pregnancy, still put her fitness first. She still was working out. 9 months pregnant, she was still working out, you know. And then I saw her the moment she was able to do anything physical, anything. It was just the bands. She already was doing it. And while she's breastfeeding, while she's learning, while she's going through the challenges of breastfeeding, while she's going through the challenges of, you know, a newborn, C-section, right? And I looked inward and I was like, this is not negative talk towards me, but I'm like, John, you're, POS in a way. Like, here you are complaining about you don't like how you look, but your wife is doing the work while she's going through some pretty radical challenges. Again, C-section, newborn, breastfeeding, sleeping, you know, like in 2-hour intervals because our son's getting up and she's the only one that can feed him, at least the first 2 weeks when she was breastfeeding. And she still is finding the time to work out and do it. And I'm like, and you can't. So today I made a crazy declaration in the sense of, really changing my physical appearance. And a lot of that was inspired because of you, because I would see you and it put this mirror on me, right? And you didn't change me. I came to that conclusion on my own, but you influenced it, right? So that's a great example of, you're right. You know, like if you want your husband or your wife to be in better shape, great. You lead by example. And it's not going to happen overnight, right? Like for you, you've been working out consistently for months. So it wasn't like you did it for a week or two and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to do it. No, it's just I saw it over and I'm like, I don't want to be the out of shape one in the relationship.
I want my wife to be.
No, not at all. I don't want either one of us to be, right? But it's true. It's like, I don't want to be the guy that like has a banging wife with a banging body, but like I'm the out of shape one. No, like I don't want to be that guy. I just don't, right? And then it can go the same way with like, I don't want to be the one who like my wife is personal developing, but like I'm still playing video games. So, I mean, what you said is so true. And it's true. You didn't, like in this whole fitness thing, you have not once made me feel like I'm not good enough or that I need to change. You loved me for where I'm at. Of course, you challenged me, right? But you changed, you worked on you. And then a byproduct of that was it inspired me. And then I came to that conclusion on my own accord because you're right. You influenced me. You didn't say, John, you got to go to the gym now. Like, no, your actions, your behaviors, your ways of thinking, how you showed up influence kind of where I'm at now.
So you're going to agree with the statement of just get better and everything around you.
1% better.
Yeah, become
that's a simple,
better.
Practical thing. It's just get a little bit better in your relationship.
And you said something really good. You said it's a mirror and that's another thing that I've realized in marriage is it's literally like holding a mirror up. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so hard. Marriage can be so hard. It is so hard, not can be, is because what we don't like in our spouse, we really don't like in us.
Wow.
And that's radical ownership right there. I don't like the me that I see in you. That's what we say in the coaching world. I don't like the me that I see in you. So if there's something you don't like about your spouse, guess what? It's in you.
Yeah. There's a reason it upsets you.
There's a reason why you're so triggered by it. And so if you can just really learn that marriage and learn that marriage is going to be the greatest thing to sharpen you. It can either tear you down or it can sharpen you and make you, like, John, when people look at us 10 years from now, we're literally not going to be the same because we're just going to get better and better and better and better. And it's because of marriage. Yeah,
because marriage, a way I would look at it too is it puts a magnifying glass on who you really are.
Yeah, you can't hide behind.
You can't hide. Yeah. I live with her. I can't if online I look like I'm doing X, Y, and Z, but then I'm sleeping in until 12 o'clock. She'll know. She'll know. She'll see this version that I'm pretending to be and this version that I really am, and it's going to create friction. So where I could have done that in our single days, or I could have pretended to be somebody I'm not. But marriage magnifies who you are. And if you're somebody who really is a hardworking individual, who's generous, who's kind, cool. It'll be magnified marriage. But if you are someone who's lazy, who doesn't do personal development, whatever, all that will be magnified, and it's up to you whether you let that magnification grow you or you let it tear you down. That's true. And I need to be okay with Josie seeing my weakest sides. And having a mindset of she is challenging me. She's not criticizing me.
That's a big one, ladies. Don't be nagging.
What does that mean? Don't be nagging.
Don't be nagging your man. Like you said, like the man is very fragile. It is the woman's place to love him. And like you said, out of the months of working out, like, of course I want you to work out with me. Of course but that's not my place. It's not my place to nag you. It's my place to love you where you are and challenge you to get where I want you to go or where you should go. Right.
That's great. I mean, we're going to wrap up here. We talked about a lot of things, and I know you and we can talk all day about marriage related stuff. And I know we'll probably do another one like this. But definitely follow my wife if you're not already following her. She's on Instagram at Josie Lynn, JOZILINN. She posts a lot of great stuff about marriage as well and motherhood. I mean, we'd even talk at all about being parents. But she'll post a lot about stuff there too.
Yeah, and I would also like to say that if anyone listening has any questions, to send us a DM. Because we might tackle some questions on our next podcast.
Of course, yeah. We don't pretend to know it all. This is just our way. And we're in this journey. I don't think you ever hit a point in any areas of your life where you're like, cool, I made it. But if we can share some of our wins, if we can share our current, we don't want to wait till we're married 15 years to really start talking on it. We believe that, hey, we're qualified for where we're at now, and we're on this journey together, but we want to at least help maybe the newlyweds or people who want to get married, or hey, if you've been married 15, 20 years and you got some value, then that's awesome, and we really are passionate. This shirt is sponsored by, this podcast episode is sponsored by Awaken Church, the Future's Family. That's why we're both wearing it. Because we really do believe that the future is family, and to have a good family, right, you need a strong mother role and a strong father role, right? And in that, the husband needs to know his duties and the wife needs to know her duties, and
so that we can raise up a generation.
Yes, because I think President Reagan said this. He said, "We're always one generation away from destruction."
That's good.
And we do believe that the family component is the most centerpiece part of our society, and that if you take that away, the society crumbles, right? We have no more morality. We have no more sense of direction. And, the truth is all of us came in here through a woman, right? Every single one of us. All of us were raised by a woman, and hopefully a father as well. And we want to empower people and just give people the tools, I should say, to have a very thriving marriage. So good. Any closing thoughts, my love?
No, that's it. It's great.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of You Can Do Hard Things, and we will catch you very soon.
Yeah, later.